I look up into the glass door and see a pair of hands shove my mother out of view. She went fucking flying. I raged out, grabbed an axe that was nearby. r/AskReddit. What was the closest you've ever been to killing someone? Subscribe, or why dog will steal all of your butter. This unattended kid ran into the street as I turned into it. Didn't even see him at all because of how tiny he was. Just heard something hit my side view mirror, and that's when I saw him rubbing his head. Drunk student fell into the road in front of me. I swerved and rode off 2 cars and injured my passenger. I was fine. He didn't even hang around to thank me, little wanker. Nurse here. Unit was very busy, and I mentioned to a patient we needed to start her on antibiotics. Patient consented. I hung penicillin, only to find out our computer said that she's anaphylactic allergic to penicillin. Incredibly, she must have outgrown her childhood allergy. Beat myself up for a long time for that near miss. Won't make that mistake again. When I was 15, I carried my 2-year-old cousin down a flight of stairs, when I tripped and we fell down 3 steps. She fell on the back of her head, and I on top of her. It took a split second before she started crying, and I thought she was dead. Thankfully, she was fine, but I'm so glad she didn't fall harder, or over the handrail, or else she would have fallen at least 3 meters and would probably be dead. Every parent could probably answer the main prompt about their own kids. Every moment, from birth to toddlerhood, is just constant vigilance, trying to keep a tiny human from accidentally killing itself. When I was in extreme sleep deprivation the first few months, I fell asleep with my infant on my stomach, or next to me on the couch, or next to me on an air mattress, etc. All situations that can kill a baby in seconds. Humans were never meant to raise babies alone, and trying to leads to over 2,000 babies per year just in the US, dying from SIDS, accidents, and unsafe sleep practices. Driving tired once, had a micro-sleep and woke up driving down the wrong side of the road. Fortunately it was late at night, no traffic around, but could easily have killed myself and my passenger. Never driven tired since. I also once had a micro-sleep, very late at night, behind the wheel on the highway, when I was 19. Woke up because of those safety bumps on the side of the road, and then woke my brother up, and told him it was his turn to drive. I was too ashamed to tell him that I very nearly killed both of us, but I also have never driven tired since. When my younger sister was in middle school, she took a very sudden and unexplained dip in personality. She went from being a bouncy, sunny kid who loved going outside and seeing her friends, to kind of reserved and struggling to keep her grades up. Her friends stopped coming around, crazy rumors about her started, and she was just overall really depressed and nervous. Our parents were very into the just suck it up mentality, so they told her to just push through and be better. I tried to get her to tell me what had happened, and she told me the same thing she told our parents. That kids at school were bullying her, and her friends were being mean. I didn't buy it, but there was nothing I could do. One day at the dinner table, we were all talking about town gossip, as was family custom, and my mom brought up how a teacher at my sister's school was looking for a hand in getting rid of some old furniture from his late father's house, and that my mother had volunteered the family to help out that coming weekend. My sister immediately broke down into having sobs, howling at the top of her lungs, as though someone had died, and you can probably guess where it went from there. She confessed that her teacher's son, who was a sophomore when my sister was in 7th grade, had assaulted her, and when she tried to tell the teacher about it, he shut her down and called her a liar, and had said he would fail her if she tried to tell anyone about it. I had to spend the following day in class with this asshole, while my parents sorted out how to handle the situation, and it took everything I had not to lose my shit on this kid. I am not a violent person, but I had to sit there with him a foot away, and all I could think about was smashing his face into the tile until the light left his eyes. That was over 10 years ago, and he's in jail now, but I still think I'd have to contain myself if I was in the same room as him again. My mum was dying in hospice. It was undignified and she was in a lot of pain, but she was still lucid. I asked her if she wanted me to help her speed things up. For context, she was a nurse before she got sick, and I knew what I could do to make things happen. She told me she wished I could, but didn't want me to get in trouble or go to jail. We laughed about it a little bit. I maintained that I would have a ball in jail. She died later that week. I spent most of it by her side. I am 100% pro-assisted euthanasia. Watching her go was torturous. When I found out my wife had been raped by her father, I would want to kill him too. Hope she is doing well. As a dad to a little girl, I cannot even begin to fathom in my mind how on God's green earth someone could ever do that to their own child. I want to kill him, and I don't even know who he is. There are some people who are just rotten to the core of their being. I can relate. My fiancée was molested by her grandfather for 10 years. She still lives at home, until we can find a place, and her mom still forces her to see him. Every time I see him, I want to strangle him. Can't do that, because if I'm gone, who's gonna watch over her? When I found out my grandfather raped my little sister, I was ready to murder him. I have bipolar and PTSD, which caused a lot of serious rage, since it was unmanaged at the time, and I think the only thing stopping me was not knowing where he lived at the time, since I've never been close to my family. Never felt that kind of rage before or since. The old fucker seems to have poorly managed diabetes, so I'm settling with being happy that he's suffering for the last years of his life. And I'm honestly glad I never made that confrontation, because I was only like 20 at the time, and I would still be in prison. Thankfully, she has been able to accept her childhood trauma, and not let it rule her life. I honestly think I'm more bothered by it than anyone else in my family, and have even been told I need to learn to forgive him in the spirit of Christianity, even though I'm agnostic. No. I will hate him until the day he dies, and only then will I feel true peace about it. Had a patient who was essentially a vegetable. I had to wrestle with him and keep him pinned to the bed. Most of his muscles had contractions, but he was still shaking and stuff, due to the pain we were probably inflicting on him, while the nurse pumped fluids out of his lung through a hole in his neck. This guy's entire existence was just lying in bed, being in pain, semi-choking on the fluids his body was producing inside his lungs, only to be pinned down, have us remove the worst parts of it, and the cycle to begin anew every hour or so. It was heartbreaking. This was not healthcare, this was torture. It would have been more humane to let him die. I felt ashamed, and still do, because I could not bring myself to kill the man. It's reasons like this that I support assisted suicide. I don't want to become a vegetable, or have a long slow death. My worst fear is a long slow death. We have an organization for assisted suicide in Switzerland. You can go there if you can prove that you have a reason why you don't want to be alive anymore. They'll give you a poison, which you'll have to inject or drink yourself. I don't know what kind of poison, because otherwise, it would count as homicide. I had started a grease fire, in a pot on the stove, while cooking for a date. Panic set in, as it was kind of a big fire. Only thing I could think of was baking soda would be the only thing to put it out, because that's what they taught us in school, right? Ransacked my cupboards, couldn't find it. Next best thing that came to mind? Dirt from outside. Ran outside to get some dirt, told her not to pour water on it, that I'll be right back. As I'm out there, I hear her scream, and a flash of orange. My heart sank, and I froze for a second. Did I just kill my date? Back inside, she's fine. Fire is smaller but still going. My walls and ceiling are scorched. I ask her what happened. She replied, she poured milk on the fire, because milk is thicker than water. Okay. Anyway, no one was harmed in all this, thankfully. Except my bank account, when my security deposit didn't cover the damages done, when I moved out later. Oh well. I do have more fire stories from that apartment. Pretty sure my landlord thought I was an arsonist or a dumb kid on his first time living alone, pretending to be an adult. PSA, next time there is a grease fire, turn off the burner, and put a lid on the pot to smother the fire. This is why it's important to have lids that fit all of your pots, or that are interchangeable. If you cannot find a lid, another pan turned upside down will sometimes work. When I was like 14 or so, I was on a swing at a park. I was going about as high and fast as that swing could possibly go. A kid who couldn't be older than 2, wandered directly in front of me as I was coming down. I slammed my feet on the ground, and stopped myself, about an inch away from her. My hands started to bleed from the chain, but at least I didn't drop kick a 2-year-old all the way across the park. The mother saw the thing happen, but she was too far away from us to do anything in the moment, but she ran over crying and thanking me for stopping. I was the 2-year-old in this situation. My older cousin yeeted me about 8 feet away. Or so I'm told. Landed on my face and slid. I am told my entire face was black and blue for quite a while. Mom was in an abusive relationship for about 8 years. About 6 years into it, me and my ex stopped by to pick Mom up, as she said the guy was drunk, and she wanted to leave. We arrive, and as I approach the front steps, I look up into the glass door, and see a pair of hands shove my mother out of view. She went fucking flying. I raged out, grabbed an axe that was nearby. Dude would chop trees on the property, and sell bundled firewood, as the guy stepped out front and downstairs. I chased him around the perimeter of the property, whilst almost blacked out in anger. A buddy of his, who was staying there temporarily, was on the side of the house smoking a cigarette and tackled me. Luckily, the axe didn't penetrate my chest, seeing as I landed face down with the axe pinned against me. Could have been all types of messy in two ways. Fast forward about 2 years, and abusive guy gets into a car wreck, and passes away. About 2 months after I got into a car wreck, on the same street in a similar truck, and walked away with cuts and bruises. Thanks for watching. Subscribe below for more daily content.